7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very, very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. Amen. Amen. Let's read the introduction as it sits in the Sunday school lesson. It says, as soon as Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, God set his redemptive plan into motion. First, he promised that one of Eve's descendants would crush the head of the deceiving serpent, Genesis 3 and 15. Then he narrowed the focus of that plan to one family. The restoration of God's blessings to humanity would come through Abraham and Sarah. By the time of Genesis 41, God's chosen family consisted of Abraham's grandson, Jacob, also known as Israel, and his children. Jacob's favorite son, Joseph, had provoked his 11 brothers to jealousy by recounting 2 dreams that prophesied that he would be ruler over them, and they had responded by selling him into slavery. As Joseph would later explain, God intended from the start to bring him to Egypt through his brother's wicked plot. The reason for that becomes evident in chapter 41, which recounts a famine that endangered not only Egypt, but also the entire Mesopotamian world, including Jacob and his family. Amen. To do a little bit of background on this text, you have to read the book of Genesis. And it talks about it a little bit in the introduction. But right now, the text that we're looking at is focusing on Joseph. Joseph is Abraham's grandson. He is Abraham's grandson through his son Jacob. Jacob was later on named Israel. And we know that there is, in the Bible, it talks about the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 sons of Jacob. And so we see here, Joseph was the younger brother in this text. He was the youngest brother in this lesson. And he foretold a dream that he had, and he explained to his brothers that he would rule over them at one point in time. The brothers became angry. They already didn't like Joseph that much because Joseph was his daddy's favorite. And since he was his daddy's favorite, they already had a little bit of jealousy towards him. But then when he told them about the dream, they had enough. And they came up with this plot that they would kill him. They threw him in a well, and their plan was to kill him. Well, one of the brothers said, no, don't kill him. Let's just sell him into slavery. And so they decided to sell him into slavery. And they came back home and they told their father that he had been killed out in the woods. Um, and so when he went off into slavery, he found favor from a man named Potiphar. But not only did he find favor from Potiphar, he found favor from Potiphar's wife as well, who Potiphar's wife wanted to sleep with Joseph. And since she wanted to sleep with Joseph, and he turned her advances down through her humiliation, she came up with the story that Joseph had attempted to rape her. And so since she came up with this story that Joseph attempted to rape her, Joseph was put into prison. While he was in prison, he ran into Pharaoh's baker, and he also ran to Pharaoh's chief cupbearer. And while he was in prison, them two had some dreams. And he was able to interpret the dreams that they had. He told the baker he was going to die. He told him how he was going to die. He told the chief cupbearer that he would be restored. And in the text, in the Bible, it shows us that as he predicted the dreams is what happened. And he asked the chief cupbearer, remember me when you go back to Pharaoh. Because he's in prison. He's in prison for something that he did not do. And it was 2 years had passed. The cupbearer had forgot all about Joseph until Pharaoh had a dream. Pharaoh had a dream, and he needed some help interpreting the dream. And he reached out to all the magicians and all the wise men, and he asked them to come and interpret this dream. And when they brought him in, none of them could interpret the dream. They could not understand the dream. They could not interpret it. And since they could not interpret it, that is how the cupbearer, the chief cupbearer, remembered Joseph. And so when he remembered Joseph, he told Pharaoh, there's a Hebrew boy that's in prison. He told me and the baker, he interpreted our dreams. And what he said was going to happen is what happened. And so Pharaoh called for Joseph. But before Joseph came before Pharaoh, he cleaned himself up, got cleaned up, got dressed, and he came before Pharaoh. And now this is where we're at in this text, where Pharaoh has told him his dream. And now Joseph is about to explain what is happening in the dreams. Amen? Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to add to that? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Reverend Davis said before they sold him, they threw Joseph in a pit. And then they decided afterwards that they would sell him. One of the brothers came up with the plan, let's just sell him. Don't kill him. Let's just sell him. And we know that now, reading the text, that was God's divine power that stopped them from killing him and just selling him into slavery. Amen. Go ahead, Brother McConnell. Yeah. Brother McConnell said when they threw him in the pit, it had to hurt. I would imagine because their intentions at the time was to kill him. And so they didn't care if something hurt. They was going to kill him. And so I imagine that they did throw him down with a form of malice with the intentions of hurting him for sure. Yeah, yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Is that door unlocked? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brother Lemby, Brother McConnell said that the time that he took in between for telling the dream and the time before Pharaoh had needed his dream foretold, that during that time, what he foretold happened. And so they knew he does know what he's talking about. And because of that, he was reminded of Joseph. It reminds me something that Pastor always tells Reverend Davidson and I. He tells us this on the normal is your gift will make a way for you. He always tells us this. This is something he tells us. Anytime that door is closed, I would probably say 75% of that time I've heard Pastor Davidson telling us your gift will make a way for you. I remember preaching a message one time, and I wanted to, and the message that I preached, I wanted to hoop. I wanted to hoop in that message, and the Lord hadn't blessed me with that yet. But man, I had been watching all these other preachers and pastors preaching and hooping, and so I got up and I preached, and I started hooping at the end, and I didn't know what I was doing. And Pastor took me in the office, closed that door, and he said, "Your gift will make a way for you." And what he was telling me was, slow down. The Lord is taking you as fast as you can go, not as fast as he can go, as fast as you can go. And so this right here is just a true definition of that your gift will make a way for you, because Joseph, his gift was interpreting dreams. And when you look at this text here, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but when you look at this text here, his gift of interpreting dreams took him from a prison to the palace. I've heard preachers preach that message before, from the prison to the palace. It was his gift of interpreting dreams that got him there. So his gift made a way for him. Yep. No. Let's get there though first. Let's get there. No, the food was there. The food was there. We're gonna get there though. Let's get there in the text first. All right. Anybody want to do number one? All right.
Why were the dreams important to ancient Egyptians? And that is found on page 62. That paragraph said, the ancient Egyptians believed that dreams were one of the primary ways that their gods communicated with them.
Yeah.
Not every dream was considered significant, but as we see in Joseph's story, when people sense a supernatural element in a dream, they sought its meaning. Dream interpretation was such a big deal that the Egyptians compiled books for deciphering the meaning of each dream component.
So the question is, why were dreams important to the ancient Egyptians? As Sister Granny Prince just read, it was a way that their gods communicated to the Egyptians. It was the way that they felt that their gods communicated to them. And so interpreting dreams was huge in that community. In Egypt, that was a big thing, is that people would interpret dreams. As I said, there was books that was published for interpreting dreams. I remember being a kid, my mom believed in that as well. We had a book, and when I would wake up in the morning off of a dream, I would run to that book, and I would open that book up, and whatever was in that dream, you could look it up. If I dreamed about fish, you look in there and go to fish, and it'll tell you what the dream was about. My grandmother used to always say, if you dream about fish, somebody pregnant in the family. That's what my grandmother used to always say. But just dreaming, that was something that was big in that area. But that just shows you how intentional God is, how God is strategic in all that he does. He has Joseph in Egypt. It was through God's plan that Joseph is in Egypt. And he used what was big, what was huge in Egypt to be able to elevate Joseph. It was because in Egypt that was such a big thing, interpreting dreams, that he was able to give Joseph the gift of interpreting dreams that would be able to bless him in this foreign land. And so this just shows how intentional God is in the way that he moves. He puts things in place, and that's why it's important for us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not lean into our own understanding. And because in this text, it just shows you how he strategically placed Joseph in Egypt and used the very thing that was huge in Egypt to be able to elevate Joseph.
You know, and as you said, when you was a little boy, you know your mom had the book, and you dreamed. But people also use that book for the dreams to play their numbers also.
Well, they had to keep going back to that book to keep playing their numbers. They should have known that book wasn't right.
But as Sheila was saying, and I think back in the day, and it's probably, I'm sure, coming from the South, probably the majority of every black family had a dream book.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I knew that we had one, but I didn't know that that was a big thing in the black community.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a big thing.
Yeah.
And probably, coming, from slavery. But yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother would say when she dreamed of fish, she would call all of her sons.
Yeah.
Which one of y'all? Which one of y'all got a baby on the way? Yep.
That dream book and those superstitions,
Yeah, because when I got pregnant with my first child, my mother said, my grandmother who was standing over the back porch, she said, Pearl, are you expecting? Mother said, no, honey, no. I didn't say nothing. She said, Mommy, my grandmother, we call my grandmother Mommy. She said, well, Joe, what about you? I said, I don't have nothing to say. but I had to own up to it.
Yeah.
I had to own up to it. These folks know everything.
But this was a way that the Lord was able to strategically place Joseph to elevate, but not only to elevate Joseph, but to also to show that he is the true and the one and only God. That's just another way that he was able to do it, because he just used the very thing that they use, basically communicating to their gods. He used that to show he was the one and true God. Amen. Anything else anyone want to add? Any questions? Or we can go to number 2. Anybody got number 2?
How did Pharaoh describe the cows and wheat in his dream? And why might that example, how worried he was about the interpretation? I found that down in the second paragraphs under famine photo.
Yeah.
Pharaoh's dream involved 2 sets of 7 kings, which means cows, and 2 sets of 7 ears of wheat. In each case, the first set was plump, and the second set was thin. And the second set consumed the first without getting any plump. Pharaoh called the plump ears of wheat good. Verse 22, and the thin cows poor. Verse 10, literally bad or evil. And I went on down the next one. The light of the ancient Egyptian tendency to label different elements of dreams, either good or bad.
Yeah.
These descriptions may indicate that Pharaoh recognized the first set was good, omens, and the second set are bad, omens. But beyond Pharaoh, that he did not know what they meant.
Amen. So the question is, how did Pharaoh describe the cows and wheat in his dream, and why might that explain how worried he was about its interpretation? You have to go up to verse 19 and then also verse 22. I'll read verse 19. It says, and behold, 7 other kind came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt, for badness. That's what he described it. And then in verse 22, he said, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up, and 1 stalk full and good, And so he described them as, in verse number 19, he described it as poor, as ill-favored, and lean-fleshed. He's described it as bad. It looks bad. But then he described the good as good. And so Pharaoh was able to identify that these things were both good on one side, but then bad on the other side. But he just could not connect the dreams and put it all together. And so he was able to decipher the fact that there's some good in this dream, but there's also some bad in this dream. And so that is probably why he was so worried about, I need to get this dream interpreted. Because obviously there's some good, but I need to figure out what's this bad, is what Pharaoh is concerned about. There's some bad in this dream, and I got to get it figured out. Amen. Any questions? Anything anyone want to add to that? All right, number 3 says, what did the 14 cows and the 14 ears of wheat in Pharaoh's dream represent? What did the 14 cows and the 14 ears of wheat in Pharaoh's dream represent? I'll read verses number 26 and 27. It says, the 7 kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years, and the dream is 1. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. Amen. Just reading down where Sister. Yeah. Oh, you want to read it? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Joseph explained first that the sets of 7 each represented 7 years. Since the 2 dreams were really one double dream, that meant the cows and wheat years represented the same 2 7 years stretches. The 7 sets of cows and wheat represented 7 productive years for the land. The bad sets represented the 7 years of famine. And so that when I read that, I said, okay, they keep on saying 7 and 7. I said, okay, now wait a minute, where's they talking about 14 then? So I had to go back and read, and